Good evening everyone. I welcome you all to Ganesh IAS Academy. In today's session, we'll be seeing environment-based current affairs. Okay, so in environment-based current affairs, the first news that we are going to discuss for today is Amrabad Tiger Reserve. So why is Amrabad Tiger Reserve in news? Let us understand the details. With the launch of new attractions and eco-tourism activities, the Amrabad Tiger Reserve in Nalamala Forest in Telangana state is ready to attract more tourists. So, where is it located? It is located in the Nalamala Forest of Telangana state. And this Nalamala Forest is a part of Eastern Ghats. This is important. Okay, so whenever you study about a protected area like a tiger reserve or a national park, wildlife sanctuary or any biosphere reserves, you must have to understand many other factors which are related to it. Okay, be it its geographical location, the mountains that are present inside the biosphere reserve or the protected area, and then the flora and fauna of that particular region, and then the rivers that are flowing through it, the tribes that are present within the reserve. All these details you must have to understand comprehensively. Okay, so now from exam point of view, let us understand about the tiger reserve, that is Amrabad Tiger Reserve. This Amrabad Tiger Reserve has rich biological diversity with several endemic species of flora and fauna. So it has several endemic species of flora and fauna, that is, it is found only in Amrabad area. And then this forest tract is home to largest number of tigers in Telangana state. This is also important. And then the hilly terrain of this tiger reserve with deep valleys and gorges forms catchment of Krishna river. So which river is related to this Amrabad Tiger Reserve? It is Krishna river. Okay, this tiger reserve forms the catchment area of the Krishna river. Okay, so what else do we have to understand? Let us see. This tiger reserve is second largest tiger reserve in terms of core area in India. Okay, in India, in terms of its core area, the second largest one is this Amrabad Tiger Reserve, and it is the sixth largest tiger reserve in terms of its total area in India. Okay, next is the tiger reserve was notified as a sanctuary. This reserve was notified as a sanctuary in the year 1983 itself, and after the bifurcation of the Telugu states, that is Andhra Pradesh and Telangana in 2014, it was declared as Amrabad Tiger Reserve because this Amrabad went to Telangana side. Okay, next is it lies in the three forest divisions. What are the three forest divisions and under which district will it fall? This we need to know. So it lies in three forest divisions. One is Amrabad and Achampet. These two forest divisions are located in Nagar Karnool district, and there is yet another forest division, that is Nagarjuna Sagar division, which is located in Nalgonda district of Telangana. Okay, yes. What else do we have to understand about the river that is flowing through it? So the major reservoirs like Srisailam Dam and Nagarjuna Sagar Dam are fed by the river Krishna and its several perennial tributaries. Okay, so most of these perennial tributaries or the streams are from this tiger reserve. They originate from this tiger reserve, and then they are fed into the Krishna river tributaries, streams. Okay, and then this tiger reserve also has a large presence of Chenchu tribe. As we said earlier, when we study about a protected area, we also discuss about the tribe that is present, tribes that are present inside the protected area. So here it is the Chenchu tribe. So from exam point of view, we need to study furthermore details about the Chenchu tribe here. So the Chenchus are scheduled tribe in the Indian states of Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Karnataka and Odisha. So where are they located? In which states they are distributed? This we know. Next is, many Chenchu tribes live in dense Nalamala forest of the Andhra Pradesh, and then these Chenchus speak Chenchu language. Here this is not important, but to which member, to which family of languages has it belonged to? Okay, so it is a member of the Dravidian language family. Very important. Okay, so Chenchu language is a member of Dravidian language family, and then the Chenchu's relationship with non-tribal people has largely been symbiotic, which means they both are going to be in a symbiotic relationship. Okay, mutually beneficial relationship. That is what symbiotic is. Okay, so this is what we need to know about this Amrabad Tiger Reserve, its flora and fauna, its location, the river that is flowing through it, the tribe that is present inside this tiger reserve. Okay, so yes. The topic that we are going to discuss now is Global Resources Outlook 2024. So what is this Global Resources Outlook? What does it deal with? And who has released this report and other such details we need to know. So United Nations Environment Program, that is UNEP, and International Resources Panel together have released a new report titled Global Resources Outlook 2024, Bend the Trend, Pathways to a Livable Planet as Resource Use Spikes. So it focuses on the resource use here. Okay, so what are all the findings related to the resource use worldwide that we need to know here? Okay, moreover, this report was released during the 6th United Nations Environmental Assembly, that is UNEA 6, and then it sheds light on the alarming trends in the extraction and use of world's resources. So in the findings we'll be talking about the consumption and use, and then the extraction of the resources. Okay, so the findings related to these will be understood in the upcoming slide. So what are all the key findings of the report? First is consumption and use. So consumption and use of resources are largely driven by the demand in upper income countries. Okay, statements like these can be directly asked in your exam. Okay, so the consumption and use of resources are largely driven by demand created where? In upper income countries. Okay, next is the global production and consumption of material resources has grown more than 3 times over the last 50 years. So global consumption and use has increased alarmingly. Next is about extraction and processing. First is extraction and processing of material resources. This accounts for over 55% of the greenhouse gas emissions and 40% of particulate matter poisoning the environment. Okay, so this is with respect to material resources. Next is extraction and processing of crops and forestry products. This accounts for 90% of the land related biodiversity loss, water stress, and 1/3 of the greenhouse gas emissions. Next is extraction and processing of fossil fuels, metals, and non-metallic minerals, including sand, gravel, and clay. And this accounts for 35% of the global emissions, greenhouse gas emissions. So we are categorizing the extraction and processing of material resources, crops and forest products, and then fossil fuels, metals, and non-metallic minerals. Okay, each of them contribute differently to greenhouse gas emissions. That is what has been discussed here. Okay, what else do we have to know about this report? That the report predicts the resource exploitation could increase by almost 60% from 2020 level by 2060. That is from 100 to 160 billion tons. From 100 tons in 2020, it may reach 160 billion tons in 2060. Okay, 60% increase. Next is the report shows global inequality where low income countries consume 6 times fewer materials when compared to wealthy nations. Like we saw in the first finding that the demand is hugely driven by the upper income countries, and here the lower income countries consume 6 times fewer material when compared to wealthy nations. Okay, so there is a inequality, disparity here. Next is the report highlights that upper middle income countries have doubled their resource utilization over the past 5 decades to facilitate their infrastructure growth. So for facilitating their infrastructure growth, they have increased their consumption. They have doubled their consumption. Who? The upper middle income countries. Okay, so this is what we need to know about this particular report. Okay, Global Resources Outlook Report 2024. The topic that we are going to discuss now is Swachhata Green Leaf Rating. What is this Green Leaf Rating, Swachhata Green Leaf Rating, and who has initiated this? Let us understand. Recently, Department of Drinking Water and Sanitation, which falls under the Ministry of Jal Shakti, in collaboration with Ministry of Tourism, has launched this initiative, that is Swachhata Green Leaf Rating Initiative. So what is the significance of this initiative? That this initiative promotes sanitation, waste management and reduced plastic use in hospitality. So this initiative is related to the hospitality sector. That is what we need to understand from exam point of view. Next is, its rating system applies to all types of accommodations and then assessing compliance with the guidelines. Okay, so it is applicable to all types of accommodations. Very important. In hospitality, whatever type of accommodation it may be, its ratings are applicable to every other accommodations that are there. Okay, and this initiative is to ensure world-class hygiene and sanitation in hospitality sector. Like we already saw that it is related to hospitality sector, and the primary goal here is to prevent pollution in water bodies and maintain clean environment. So we need to prevent pollution from water bodies and maintain a clean environment. This is the ultimate goal here. Okay, so this is the logo for the Swachhata Green Leaf Rating, which is in hospitality facilities. Okay, so this is what we need to know about this particular initiative. The topic that we are going to discuss now is groundwater contamination. Why is groundwater contamination again in news? Let us understand. So, the National Green Tribunal recently expressed its dissatisfaction over Central Groundwater Authority's response to widespread issue of toxic arsenic and fluoride in groundwater across India. So, our groundwater is heavily polluted by arsenic and fluoride, and the Central Groundwater Authority is not taking much effort. Okay, it's not responding properly, and National Green Tribunal has expressed their dissatisfaction over this. That is why we have this in news. So from exam perspective, we need to understand what groundwater contamination is, what are all the different sources and what are all the different agents that are involved in groundwater contamination. Let us get into the details. Groundwater contamination due to arsenic is prevalent in 230 districts across 25 states of India, while that which is caused by fluoride is prevalent in 469 districts across 27 states in India. Okay, a question based on this statement can also be asked. Okay, next is, India is one of the world's largest users of groundwater, where groundwater contributes to more than 60% of the country's irrigation resources. Of all the irrigation resources that we have, 60% is dependent on the groundwater. Okay, that much of groundwater we are extracting. And here, over extraction of groundwater is non-renewable. Why it is non-renewable? That is because recharge rates are less than the extraction rates. And here, replenishing this resource can take thousands of years. Okay, so when we are taking steps to replenish groundwater, it may take even thousands of years to accomplish it. Okay, so the recharge rates here are far less than the extraction rates. That is why we call it non-renewable extraction. Extraction of groundwater is non-renewable. Okay, now let us understand the different sources of groundwater contamination. Okay, the first source here is naturally occurring contaminants like arsenic, fluoride, iron, uranium, which exist naturally in some geological formation, thus contaminating the groundwater. Here we have to see two important pollutants. One is arsenic, another is iron. Here, in terms of arsenic and iron pollution, West Bengal and Assam are the worst affected states respectively. That is, for arsenic it is West Bengal and for iron it is Assam. Okay, they are the worst affected state. And the next resource or the next source, the next source here is agriculture. So excessive use of fertilizers, pesticides and herbicides leach harmful chemicals into the water table. Okay, so when we go for excessive use of fertilizer, pesticide and herbicide, it leaches into the groundwater. Okay, next is industrial waste, that is untreated industrial effluent often find their way into groundwater sources, thus introducing heavy metals and other toxins. Okay, here already heavy metals are directly present in the ground, in the geological formation. They also seep into groundwater. This is naturally occurring, whereas these heavy metals and other toxins are man-made. Okay, these are anthropogenic causes. Next is, the other sources are urbanization, that is leaky sewage systems and improper waste disposal systems in urban areas contribute to groundwater pollution, which is a huge problem in many urban areas in India. Next is salt water intrusion is again an important reason. Okay, so in coastal areas, overpumping of groundwater can cause salt water from the ocean to infiltrate into the freshwater aquifers, and when this happens, it renders the water unusable for drinking and irrigation purpose. Okay, so when the freshwater aquifers are infiltrated with salt water, then the water become unusable for drinking purpose as well as for irrigation purpose. Next is, here this fact is important, that Rajasthan has the highest number of rural habitations which are affected by the contamination, that is salinity as a contamination. Okay, yes. Now we need to know about the primary agents. There are many primary agents which are causing groundwater contamination. The first one that we are going to discuss is arsenic. Okay, so while arsenic occurs naturally, it is also present in human-made forms which are used in agriculture, mining and manufacturing industries. And here seepage from industrial and mining discharges as well as from fly ash ponds in thermal power plants can introduce arsenic into ground. So what are all the sources that you need to focus here? Moreover, chronic exposure to arsenic can cause blackfoot disease. So which type of disease is caused by which type of contaminant that is present in groundwater? This may be asked as a question. A match the following kind of question can also be asked. Okay, so blackfoot disease is caused because of arsenic contamination. One thing. Next is fluoride. It is another primary agent which is causing which is causing groundwater contamination. So in India, fluorosis is the problem. Okay, fluorosis is prevalent issue due to consumption of water with high fluoride content. So because of excessive fluoride content in water, we get this disease called as fluorosis. Okay, here excessive fluoride intake can also result in neuromuscular disorders, gastrointestinal problems, dental deformities and skeletal fluorosis, which is characterized by painful and stiff joints. So fluorosis here is causing painful and stiff joints, bone. Okay, that is skeletal fluorosis. Next is dental deformities also occur. Some people from birth they will be having yellow colored teeth. Okay, that is not because they do not brush their teeth properly. That is because of excessive fluoride content in their water. Okay, so they are not to be blamed here. Next is knock-knee syndrome. What is knock-knee syndrome? It is marked by outward bending of legs from knees because of excessive presence of fluoride ions in the water. Okay, that is knock-knee syndrome. So knock-knee syndrome is related to fluoride and blackfoot disease is related to arsenic. What other primary agents that we have to focus on? Here we have nitrates. Okay, so excessive nitrate level in water, in drinking water, react with hemoglobin. Okay, and then it forms non-functional methemoglobin and hindering oxygen transport. So hemoglobin reacts, these nitrates react with hemoglobin to form non-functional methemoglobin, which will hinder the oxygen transport. When oxygen transport, because hemoglobin's primary activity or the primary role that it has is to carry oxygen from one part of the body to another. Okay, so here the oxygen transport is hindered, which lead to methemoglobinemia. Okay, and this anemia is also called as blue baby syndrome. Okay, next is high nitrate levels can also contribute to formation of carcinogens, that is cancer causing agents, and accelerate eutrophication is also accelerated, that is algal bloom kind of thing can also be accelerated because of excessive nitrates that are present in groundwater. Next is uranium. It is found in the concentrations above WHO guidelines in certain localized regions, pockets in India. Okay, so in regions like Rajasthan and northwestern states, uranium is primarily present in alluvial aquifers, whereas in southern states like Telangana, it originates from crystalline rock such as granite. Okay, and elevated uranium levels in drinking water can cause kidney disorders. Okay, so uranium, it is kidney disorder, and then if it is nitrates, then it is methemoglobinemia, sorry, anemia, methemoglobinemia, also called as blue baby syndrome. Next is radon and other trace metals. This we need to discuss. First, radon. Recently, in some areas of Bengaluru, groundwater used for drinking has been found to contain significantly high levels of this radioactive radon. So, how is this radioactive radon formed? Radon originates from radioactive granites and uranium, which undergoes decay to form radium and radon. Okay. Moreover, the presence of radon in air and water can damage lung tissues. So, lung is affected because of radon's presence, and then increasing the risk of lung cancer. It may also lead to lung cancer if too much of exposure is happening. And what are the trace metals that we have in groundwater as a contaminant? Okay, so water may also be contaminated by trace metals like lead, mercury, cadmium, copper, chromium and nickel, which possess carcinogenic properties. All of these heavy metals possess carcinogenic properties. Here we are going to see about two metals. One is cadmium, another is mercury. So water contaminated with cadmium can cause ittai disease, which is also called as ouch disease. And then mercury in water, it causes Minamata disease, okay, which is a neurological syndrome that is happening in humans. Okay, it has been observed near the Minamata Bay of Japan. That is why it is named as Minamata disease. Okay, mercury in water causes this problem. Okay, so these are all the things that we need to understand from groundwater contamination perspective. The topic that we are going to discuss now is nitrogen pollution. So let us discuss why nitrogen pollution in news and other details related to nitrogen pollution. Recent research has stated that by 2050, one-third of the global river subbasins are projected to face severe scarcity of clean water due to nitrogen pollution. So there will be scarcity of clean water, that is because of nitrogen pollution. So how is water going to get affected because of nitrogen pollution? That we need to understand. Before that, what is nitrogen pollution and what are all the causes of nitrogen pollution? This we need to know. Different sources that we have to understand. So nitrogen pollution refers to excessive presence of nitrogen compounds in the environment, primarily in water bodies like rivers and lakes. So they affect rivers and lakes. And then according to United Nations Environment Program, each year 200 million tons of reactive nitrogen is lost into the environment. Okay, and one of the main drivers of the nitrogen pollution has been rising consumption of nitrogen based fertilizers. Okay, that is agriculture sector, which has doubled between the year 1978 and 2014 when we take globally. Okay, and then the amount of the reactive nitrogen which is produced by humans is now greater than the amount which is created through natural processes. Okay, so anthropogenic causes or the sources have become more than the natural causes. Okay, so this is a thing which is to be addressed. Next is, what are all the different sources of nitrogen pollution that we have? The very first source is the agricultural source. Okay, so agricultural activities, one of the main drivers of nitrogen pollution has been the rise in consumption of nitrogen based fertilizer, as we already saw, and these fertilizers leach into the groundwater or they run off into surface water bodies. Thus nitrogen related compounds are entering into water bodies. Next is industrial processes. Okay, manufacturing processes particularly which are involved in the production of nitrogen based chemicals and fertilizers release nitrogen compounds into the environment, and combustion of fossil fuels in industries also emit nitrogen oxides into atmosphere. Each of these can be asked as a question. Okay, which are the different sources that are present? Okay, which are the different sources of nitrogen pollution? It can be asked. Okay, so it is combustion of fossil fuel and then nitrogen based chemicals and fertilizers which leach. Okay, next is livestock farming. This is again an important source of nitrogen pollution. So livestock waste primarily from manure and urine contain nitrogen compounds such as ammonia, urea and other things. Okay, so improper storage and management of livestock waste can lead to nitrogen runoff, thus contaminating water bodies and contributing to eutrophication. So here nitrogen contamination leads to eutrophication, that is algal bloom kind of thing. Okay, so livestock sector currently emits 65 teragrams of nitrogen per year, which is equivalent to 1/3 of the current human induced nitrogen emissions. So 1/3 is contributed by the livestock farming sector. Okay, next is biomass burning also leads to nitrogen release. How? That is because wildfires and burning of cow dung cake as fuel release nitrogen oxides and nitrous oxides into the atmosphere, and here these emissions contribute to air pollution and can have regional and global impacts on atmospheric chemistry and climate. Okay, so this is what we need to know here. What other things that we have to analyze? That is the major impacts of nitrogen pollution. How does nitrogen pollution impacts our environment? First is eutrophication, as we discussed. That is, excess nitrogen act as a nutrient supply for aquatic plants, thus leading to excessive growth of algae and other aquatic vegetation, and this phenomenon is known as eutrophication and it leads to algal blooming. When algal blooming happens, it covers the topmost position of the water with excessive algae growth. When that happens, there is no penetration of sunlight into deeper waters. When no penetration of sunlight, then there won't be food production. When there is no food production, then the secondary organisms that are dependent on the primary consumers or the primary producers, they will get affected. Okay, so this creates oxygen depleted zones called as hypoxic zones. Hypoxic zones called as dead zones. Okay, where aquatic life suffocates and then it dies. So because of eutrophication, excessive nutrient supply is also a problem. Nutrient supply, it has to be optimized. When it goes beyond a limit, too much of anything is good for nothing. Likewise, so nutrient supply, when it becomes excess, it leads to algal blooming, and which in turn leads to suffocation and death of many aquatic lives. Next is human health impacts. How does nitrogen pollution affect human health? So high levels of nitrogen dioxide in the air can aggravate respiratory conditions such as asthma and increase the risk of respiratory infections. So your respiratory problems happen, and then the nitrate contamination of drinking water can also pose health risks, particularly to infants, by causing the same thing, that is methemoglobinemia. Okay, what is methemoglobinemia? It is also called as blue baby syndrome. Okay, which is characterized by decreased oxygen transport. And then ozone depletion is also caused because of nitrogen pollution. So how is nitrogen pollution related to ozone depletion? Let us understand. So nitrous oxide released into the atmosphere can lead to depletion of stratospheric ozone layer, which is a good ozone which protects us, okay? So which protects the earth from harmful ultraviolet radiation. So the stratospheric ozone layer is depleted because of nitrous oxide which is released into atmosphere. This is one way. Next is depletion of ozone layer can increase the risk of skin cancer, cataracts and other health problems in humans as well as in marine ecosystems and agricultural crops. All of this is affected because of depletion of stratospheric ozone layer. And see here, this is also important that this nitrous oxide release also leads to creation of tropospheric ozone. Here tropospheric ozone is a pollutant here, but here in stratosphere ozone is not a pollutant. It protects our earth from harmful ultraviolet radiation, whereas in troposphere it is a pollutant which causes respiratory illness. Okay, so this is what we need to know here. Okay, so we saw about the nitrogen pollution, what nitrogen pollution is, what are all the different sources of nitrogen pollution, and what are all the impacts of nitrogen pollution. So this is what we need to know about this particular topic. With this, we have come to end of today's session. I hope you found the session to be very useful and informative. Let us see in the next session. Thank you all.